Hi, welcome to the latest edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. Going to be continuing my Rolling Stone series where I rank the albums. Today, I'm going to be ranking the albums from the 1990s and beyond, the studio records, but I'm going to be showing you a whole lot of other cool releases as well. I already did a video recently of the 70s albums and the 80s albums, and we're going to be doing the 90s studio records, which we're going to be talking about shortly. But before we do that, let's talk about the update. As far as the Rolling Stones, today is September 4th, and as we know, or maybe you don't know, September 6th, the Stones are going to be doing some kind of event over in Hackney. They announced today that they're going to be doing something with Jimmy Fallon. Apparently it's going to be around 2:30 British time. Here in the States on the East Coast, it's going to be around 9:30. Unfortunately for me, I'll be working, and I'm working every day this week, so I will not be hearing that, whatever the hell it is. Probably a press conference. I know it's an interview with Jimmy Fallon. I won't be hearing that until late that night. So you guys could feel free to send me comments throughout the day. Let me know what I'm missing, unfortunately. But so they're going to be doing this event with Jimmy Fallon regarding Hackney Diamonds. I know you could send in questions. So hopefully it'll be a good, intelligent interview, and we'll get some good information. They're talking about the new era with the Rolling Stones, and let's see what happens. The other big news is they put out a 19-second clip of their upcoming single, Don't Get Angry With Me. It's funny, on some of these Stone sites that I check out, man, a lot of arguing. It's 19 seconds, man. How do you prejudge a whole album based on 19 seconds? So here's what I gather. What you hear is a slight count-in from Jagger. Big drum sound, man. Big kick drum sound. My ears say it's definitely Steve Jordan. And a big guitar riff. I don't know, what does it remind? That kind of, you know, you kind of heard it before, you know, Must Be Hell, Soul Survivor-ish, things like that. Rockin' a Hard Place. To me, my ears say it's definitely pure Mick Jagger on the guitar. It's a very heavy kind of guitar strum. Definitely sounds like Jagger, not Keith. But it's kind of catchy, big drum sound. We'll see where it goes. Jagger's vocals are way up top, which is the last couple decades, the way the Stones have been doing it. You all know I prefer Jagger's vocals buried in the mix, but that's long ago. But his voice sounds great. Don't Get Angry With Me. I love the promotion that the Stones are putting out there. There's stickers being stuck, you know, getting angry. And I love the, there's actually a site where you could download the 19-second song, but it doesn't work. Or it loads up really slow. And so Don't Get Angry With Me. So clever marketing, and hopefully all of this will translate to a big sales week when the Stones finally do release this album, because I'm hoping if this is their last album, I hope they go out with a bigger bang than a bigger bang. All right, with that said, let's continue with ranking the albums. I did the 70s, I did the 80s. Those were really, really easy for me. I don't even have to think twice. I have not prepared except bringing this stuff out because the 90s is really, really easy for me to rank as well. I'm going to rank the studio records, and then I'll show you some other cool releases, because even the Stones have only released really 4 albums in the 90s studio releases. At least Mick Jagger has been super active, you know, with the deluxe reissues, with CD bonus CDs, and a lot of that stuff is all brand new vocals and new lyrics. So so let's talk about the 90s. You got, now, I already did Steel Wheels in the 80s because it came out in 1989. When I do the ranking, I'm going to include Steel Wheels because even though it's from 89, this is really a new era for the Stones. After Dirty Work, the band came back, and it's a completely different band. You know, the live stuff is with the big show, the big band, touring background musicians, the band playing really tight. No more loosey-goosey Stones. And then yeah, it's really a completely different Rolling Stones. And Keith, big part of the change. You know, when I grew up in the 70s, most people never heard of Keith Richards unless you were a big music fan. And then, you know, of course, Keith's profile got huge over the decades with his book and his appearances in Disney movies and his ads for You know, he does ads, and you know, he's probably more famous at this point than Mick Jagger to a certain extent. So, you know, the other thing with these albums is, you know, Keith only occasionally would have one song on an album, and not even on every album, and it was an extra treat. Now, it's a given, and you get sometimes 2, sometimes 3 Keith songs. So the band has never been the same since they came back. Keith on an equal level with Mick, and clearly there's always this internal battling going on. So let's talk about the Stones. 89, they released Steel Wheels. 94, Voodoo Lounge. 97, Bridges to Babylon. 2005, Bigger Bang. And that's 18 years ago since they released a studio record of new material. 2016, we had Blue and Lonesome. So it's an easy ranking for me. At number 5, even though there's really only 4, but we'll throw Steel Wheels in there. Number 5 for me is Blue and Lonesome. Finally, a great cover. I love the graphics on this. Simple, classy, Blue and Lonesome, beautiful. Love the inner gatefold. It's a really good record for what it is. The problem for me is I just never really listened to it that much when it came out compared to other Stones albums. And I just don't really ever go back to it. But when you're in the mood and you want to hear the Stones doing blues, it's a terrific listen. And it just flows really nice. So it's a good blues covers album from the Rolling Stones, a really good one. It's just not something that I listen to that often then or now. And that's why Blue and Lonesome is at number 5. At number 4, reverse order, is a Bigger Bang, which came out in 2005. Wasn't a big fan of the graphics, but it was better than some of the other ones. There is the original album. The problem that you get on some of these latter-day Stones albums is because of the CD length, they just put a lot of songs on these things. And so this one's got, 14 songs? And if you had taken like the 10 best songs on these albums, they'd be better albums. We'll talk about Voodoo Lounge later because Mick once talked about that. This album, I really like some of it a lot. The first single was Rough Justice. This is a CD single of it, import. I didn't think that song was that great. A lot of people got a lot of play and publicity. I just didn't think it was that great. There was another version of it. Here's a special edition of a Bigger Bang. Came with a DVD, and the DVD had 2 extra tracks on it, which were just okay as well. Some people thought they were great. I thought they were just okay. It's got videos on there and lyrics, and the 2 bonus tracks were Under the Radar and Don't Want to Go Home, I think it was called. They were just okay. So this is that. But as far as the regular album goes, the opening track was Rough Justice, was just okay. You know, I thought, starting from song 2, you know, I thought, you know, Let Me Down Slow was terrific. It Won't Take Long, I thought was great. Rain Fall Down with that great Jagger lick. It kind of reminiscent, actually, of the new song, Don't Get Angry, only a much more gentler version of it. But that's all Jagger as well. Rain Fall Down was really good. Streets of Love was a really potentially great ballad that, and I'm not a lyric guy, but Streets of Love was ruined by the lyrics. The lyrics are awful, and I use the word awful purposely because that's the word that is throughout that song. If Jagger sings awful one more time, and it just goes right through my spine. The sing-along part, which when they played it live, was terrific, Streets of Love. Back of My Hands, good bluesy track. She Saw Me Coming is really funky, and I really like that. Biggest Mistake was really good. Keith's song, This Place Is Empty, was terrific, great ballad. But the problem is towards the end, really. Infamy is another Keith song that's just lousy, I thought. Sweet Neocon, you know, not a big fan of that. Look What the Cat Dragged In was just okay. Driving Too Fast, is that the name of it? That was just okay. Laugh I Nearly Died had the potential to be a phenomenal ballad. The problem with it is, problem with some of Jagger's latter-day vocals is he sings too much. You know, I love Mick Jagger as a vocalist. I think he's one of the greatest of all time. But he was never a great singer. Now, Jagger's voice has maintained. It's a miracle. When Jagger still sings, it sounds great. But over the years, he just became more of a singer. And I don't want to hear Mick Jagger so high up in the mix and doing trills and things that Whitney Houston might be able to accomplish. You know, I'd rather Mick be lower in the mix. And some of the songs just get ruined. Laugh I Nearly Died is one of those. He just oversins it, in my opinion. Let's keep going. So that was number 5. Number 4. Number 3 for me, well, it's this one right here, Bridges to Babylon, with this dreadful cover, with the gatefold right there. Great tour. Same thing. This one really is an interesting record because Voodoo Lounge was where the band really came together and did a Rolling Stones album. This album is clearly 2 separate albums in one. You got Keith's album, you got Mick's album, and different producers helping out. And I don't really know how involved each guy was with the other guy's material and some of this stuff. But, you know, opened with Flip the Switch, which was typical paint by numbers, Stones track. Was just okay. They played it live, was fine. The original single was Anybody Seen My Baby, which I think is fantastic. It's one of my favorite Stone songs. I love that track. I think it's fantastic. Here's the single from it. I thought it was going to be a huge hit. Unfortunately, it wasn't. Not a great song for them to play live either. But Anybody Seen My Baby still sounds great. Low Down was great. Already Over Me was a nice ballad. Gunface I loved. You Don't Have to Mean It. So that was a great Keith song. Kind of a reggae-ish kind of sack. Out of Control. Well, that was the 3rd single from the album. To me, that's a classic Stones track. I call it the modern-day Midnight Rambler because Midnight Rambler live is so much far superior than the studio version. The studio version of Out of Control is really good, but the live version is amazing. So Out of Control kind of lose some of its power on the studio version. Saint of Me was the 2nd single, I believe it was. Here's the single, and there it is on vinyl. I got the big 12-inch vinyl version of that single. I was never a huge fan of Saint of Me, but it was great live. And then it goes on. You know, you got some experimental stuff. Might As Well Get Juiced as pure Jagger, and I kind of liked it. Always Suffering, another ballad. Too Tight, basic rocker. Thief in the Night, great Keith, kind of a ballad with a great groove. And then How Can I Stop, another Keith song. So Keith's got 3 on this album, and the last 2 are very moody, kind of ballady kind of a song, and they're kind of long. So it's like, you know, Keith throwing his weight around that he's really an equal partner with Jagger, and Jagger can't stop him, and definitely ego stuff going there, in my opinion. Bridges to Babylon is a fine, fine record. I think it's much better than A Bigger Bang, but it's not a unified album. The number 2 album I would put would be Steel Wheels. I'm not going to go into it because there's a 80s video where I do a lot about Steel Wheels. And it came out in 89, so it really shouldn't be here, but it's the Latter-day Stones, so that's why I'm putting it here. So you got 5, 4, 3, 2. The number 1 album from the 90s studio record for me is definitely Voodoo Lounge. It suffers a bit like Bridges to Babylon in that it's just too damn long. Jagger commented on it at the time because he was saying, well, with the CD length, I want to give fans their money's worth. And I really appreciate that. I think that's pretty cool of him. But the reality is if you put this album down to 10 songs, the 10 best songs, it'd be a tremendous Stones album. With that said, I still think it's a really, really strong album. It had 4 singles, right? And interesting ones. Love Is Strong was the original single from the album. I thought it was an interesting choice because it's really not a commercial track. I think it's a great track. It's really very Rolling Stones-ish with the great Mick Jagger harmonica on it, great groove, fantastic black and white video where the Stones are all enlarged and everything, but certainly not a really commercial song, and it didn't work that well live. Out of Tears was the 2nd single from the album. I think it's one of the best ballads the Stones have done in a long time. I'm a sucker for Stones ballads, and this was way up there. And it was nice for Ronnie Wood to really do a nice lyrical melodic guitar solo, which he does on Out of Tears. Kind of a rarity, but he really did a great job on that one. You Got Me Rockin', which the Stones have played on and off live ever since. This is the CD single for that. Great B-side. Jump on Top of Me, I probably would have thrown on the album. That's a killer B-side. But You Got Me Rockin's a really good, fun rocker. Lyrics are okay, but, hey, you got me rocking. It works live. Jagger's doing his best to this day trying to make it a Stones classic. I don't know if it's worthy that far, but it's a good track, as is this one. I Go Wild, also a really strong, hard-rocking Stones track. I love the Voodoo Lounge tour because the Stones were really an active band at that time, and they were playing all this stuff live, and it was fun. For me, I'd rather see new, challenging material than the same tracks over and over again. The Voodoo Lounge is a really good tour. Here's a great promo. Love that artwork. I actually would have made that the cover instead of this one. But this is just a promo. Some of the highlight tracks from Voodoo Lounge, a sampler. That's a cool one. So I already mentioned a lot of the songs that are great. Sparks Will Fly they did live as well. The Worst, really nice, quick little 2-minute, 20-second song from Keith. Really like that ballad. New Faces is a great harpsichord one. Moon Is Up is an experimental kind of track that probably wouldn't have made the album if it wasn't on CD. Brand New Car, also kind of okay. They played that live every once in a while. Sweethearts Together, interesting little track. Suck on the Juggler is pure Jagger. Blinded by Rainbows, to me, a lot of people hate that song. I don't get it. It's one of my favorite latter-day Stones tracks. I think it's an amazing ballad. Would love to see them do that live, but that'll never happen. Baby Breaking Down, really good track. Through and Through, got a whole second life because I think that was in The Sopranos. Another Keith track. I mean, Disposition is kind of like a throwaway, but nice little groove on that one, and kind of a low-key way to end the album, but it's fine. This is a really good latter-day Rolling Stones album, and that's, to me, why it's my #1 90s Stones album. So there you go, from the 90s, Blue and Lonesome 5, Bigger Bang 4, Bridges to Babylon 3, Steel Wheels, not really included, but it is because it's latter-day 2, and Voodoo Lounge #1. But as you can see, the Stones were busy. And not only did they release these studio records, but tons of live records. So you got Flashpoint. And now I don't want to go too much into them because I already did a video on the live stuff. Flashpoint is from the Steel Wheels tour. Really disappointing live record in my opinion. But this is a fun collectible because it's got a whole second disc of rarities and 12-inch mixes. A different case is after the Voodoo Lounge tour in 1995. Instead of doing another live record, they did Stripped. Love this one. It's a mixture of live in the studio, raw takes of tracks that they never play, like, Spider and the Fly, and I'm Free, and other stuff like that. Little Baby's a great little one. Love in Vain has a false beginning. And then some really great live stuff from the Voodoo Lounge tour, from club shows and things like that. They wound up bettering the album. There's a deluxe set up there that I have called Totally Stripped with DVDs. I thought their version of Like a Rolling Stones was fantastic. I still love when they play it. I thought it was a great choice of a single. The second single was another version of Wild Horses, which was okay. Some good unreleased stuff that wasn't on the Stripped album showed up on these. So I think Stripped is a terrific, terrific compilation of live and in the studio jamming. It's a great Stones album. Bridges to Babylon, 97. Then they came back, and in 1998, they released the No Security live record. I got a ton of different versions of that one. I actually think this is a really good Stones live album. The idea was that they would put live stuff on here that was never released live before, which is not entirely true. They have a short memory. But, yeah, you finally get You Got Me Rockin' as an opener. Gimme Shelter's a good version. Here's Flip the Switch. Memory Motel, one of my favorite songs by the Stones. Was so excited to get it live. Here's a CD single of it. But unfortunately, it's got Dave Matthews as a duet. And no offense to Dave Matthews, I want to hear Mick and Keith on it. So I wish they would have put out a regular version of Memory Motel. Karina, Saying to Me is really good on here. Much better than the studio version. Waiting on a Friend's great. Sister Morphine, beautiful. Live With Me is great. Of course, that was already on Yaya's. Respectable. This is a Japanese import. So if you look really closely, what do you see? You see I Just Want to Make Love to You, which is not on the regular version. So that was a Japanese import version. There's the Obi. So I got that just for that one track. I got a 3 CD with an interview disc on here, promo. I'm a fan. Thief of the Night is a great version from Keith. And it ends with Out of Control, as I am quoted in saying, and I stick by it. That's the Latter-day Midnight Rambler, and it's an awesome live track. What else? They did the Licks tour, and they put out a double live CD of that called Live Licks. This is the version that she's got a bikini top on it. And great track selection, but I don't know what it is about this album, besides the fact that it's got one of the worst edits of all time on Rocks Off. How that made the album, I'll never understand. Great track selection. The Licks tour was really, really interesting because when they played these club shows, man, they played really deep tracks. But this album does not capture, in my opinion, the greatness of those club shows as well. You know, some great stuff on here for sure, but I don't know. I just don't really go back and listen to this much. I have bootlegs of those club shows like Roseland and the bootlegs of Far Superior. So there's live licks for you. Other interesting ones is Shine a Light. I have 2 versions of that. One is a 2 CD set, one's a single set. This is an interesting album. It's got some great stuff. She Was Hot, fun to hear that live as tears go by. The title track of Some Girl is always one of my favorites. You got a duet with Christina Aguilera on Live With Me, which is great. Jack White on Loving Cup. I give the Stones credit because this is a really, really raw live album. That's the most raw live Stones album that I've heard. And it's not a great performance in my opinion. So that's just my opinion. We talked about Ladies and Gentlemen. They finally released that in 2017. That's possibly the worst sounding Stones live album ever. Omakondo, that came out in last year. And that's one of the best live records ever from the Stones. So a good chunk of live stuff that the Stones have released in the 90s. Of course, they finally got around to releasing the Rock and Roll Circus. That's a really fun watch. You know, people say the Stones' performance was not good. It's fine. It's just they were just obviously really tired from the filming. But nice to see Brian Jones, who's not in particularly good shape. It's kind of interesting to see it. Nice version of No Expectations. The Who does kill it on there. And fun to see Jethro Tull with Tommy Iommi in it. Also, they released the Stones on Air. 2 different versions of that. This is the single version. This is the 2 CD version. This is the Stones on the BBC. I've had this stuff for decades, you know, on bootleg, but nice to finally have it on officially released CD. Just that when you're a big Stones fan like me and you've had this stuff on bootleg, and I have tons more of it that they didn't put on there, it's a little bit underwhelming. But if you didn't have it, great stuff. Some other really interesting compilations. Now, I already did a video on compilations. Jump Back is, you know, 71 to 93. You know, your basic classic tracks. But this sold really well, which was nice. You know, they did the 40 Licks tour, the 40 Licks album, 2 CDs. This was interesting because it was a compilation of their whole career, you know, where it was all together, which is very rare. The biggest thing with this album was the 4 new tracks. And on this promotional CD, 4 new licks, I was able to get them pulled out right there. So you got Keys to Your Heart, Keys to Your Love, Stealing My Heart, Losing My Touch, the Keith Richards one, and the single, which was Don't Stop. I was not overwhelmed with any of these tracks, to be honest with you. Keith, you know, has become like Hoagie Carmichael with all his ballads all the time. Losing My Touch was okay. Stealing My Heart was okay. Keys to Your Love, I thought was the best track, very poppy. And the fact that Don't Stop was the lead single, I was very underwhelmed by that track and still am. Let's hope that the new album is far superior than that. Let's hope. What else did they put out? A lot of compilations. You know, Grr they put out. You could look at my other video on compilations. I got that huge mega box. The big thing with Grr, this is a 3-disc version. I got like the huge one as well. But the thing with Grr, which was interesting, it had the 2 new tracks, which was Doom and Gloom and One More Shot. I did like those songs. I thought Doom and Gloom was real good. And One More Shot, which was a Keith track, was also real good. Not earth-shaking, but they were fine. And then Honk, when did this one come out? 2019. And there's a bunch of different versions of that. This is the single version. And then I got the triple version here. And I got that strictly because of that disc 3, which had a bunch of live stuff. And to finally get an officially released version of Dancing with Mr. D, of course it's on Brussels as well, was nice. Some good duets. She's a Rainbow Live was nice. It's pretty good. Good compilation, but it's only the stuff that's post-1971. Lots of different comps on there. This was an interesting one called Rarities. This came out in 2005, and hard to find these days. Mostly like B-sides, things like that. You finally get Through the Lonely Nights on CD. Love that track. We talked about that in the B-side video I did. Through and Through, the live version, was kind of fun. There's I Just Want to Make Love to You live, and a bunch of 12-inch mixes. If I Was a Dancer, which is a great, you know, great tune there. So, cool stuff. This is a good collection. I like, for me to listen to Stones compilations, the only ones I listen to are like these offbeat ones, Suckin' in the 70s, Rarities, those kind of ones. So, there you have it, folks. The Stones in the 90s, except one other one. Oh, on Flashpoint, did I mention High Wire and Sex Drive? There's Sex Drive. You can see that right there on 12-inch. Sex Drive, not a particularly great Stones song, but High Wire is, man. High Wire is one of my favorite unknown kind of Stones tracks, and I wish they would play that live. That's a great track if you don't know High Wire. Here's the single on purple vinyl of Living in a Ghost Town. I love this one. I think this is the best Stones track in memory. I don't know what it is totally about the song, but I love it. It has nothing to do with the sentiment of, you know, what was going down with COVID. I just love the song. The guitar work, this is pure classic Stones. I love the guitar interplay. I love Jagger's harmonica. It's a great production. I love Jagger singing. It's not over the top. He's not over singing it. It's a fantastic track. I was hoping they would actually put it on the new album, though a lot of people would think that's a cop-out because it came out a couple years ago. I don't care. That needs to be on a real Stones album, and it looks like it's not going to happen. So that would have been nice. Anyway, there you have it, folks. The Stones in the 90s. Let me know what you think. Stay tuned for Wednesday. Let me know what I'm missing, man. I wish I could take off, but I can't. And hopefully it'll be a worthwhile interview with Jimmy Fallon as we gear up. I got one more of these videos that I'm going to do, the Stones in the 60s, and ranking the albums. That's going to be tough because a lot of those albums are kind of interchangeable. But we'll see what happens. Hope you had a good holiday weekend if you're here in the States. Thanks for watching the Alan Rosenberg Show. Appreciate it. Hit subscribe if you're new. Check out my other videos. I'll do a playlist where I put all my Stones videos because there's starting to be a lot of them. Have a great night. I'll see you next time.